what I've discovered now as the person I am today and the spirituality that I've experienced, the energetics, the vibration, the freak, all those sort of things. My guides, I know that they were there
Mm,
at that time to say, hey, no, 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 this isn't where you leave us. This is just another part of your journey to grow you and develop you and prepare you,
mm.
rewire you for the man you're about to come in another 10 years or so, to be on this earth to help change humanity.
This is Inspired Founders, a podcast that helps you find your true north in business and beyond. I'm Priscilla Skippington, a soul-led entrepreneur passionate about sharing the wisdom of world-leading business minds who have walked the path before us. From their toughest challenges to their greatest triumphs, we explore the stories that have shaped their journey and defined their future. Together, we discover the resilience and redemption it truly takes to achieve success, make a lasting impact on the world, and live a life that is truly fulfilling. Welcome to another episode of the Inspired Founders podcast with me, Priscilla Skippington. Today, I have the amazing technician with me, Travis Cochran. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm still sort of coming back down to earth from the conversation we had before we even pressed record. So I'm excited for this, dude. I just want to say thank you, grateful for the opportunity, and I know that ever since we met, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago,
Feels like a lifetime already. In the
it
best
does.
way,
And
in the best way.
yeah, yeah, and I feel that when I literally met you at Navdeep's event, Todd introduced me. I was like, wait, am I just re-meeting someone I already know? What's going on here? It was
Yeah,
wild. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
really excited to see what comes through today.
Yeah, me too. And I felt exactly the same when I met you for the first time. It was like this old connection that we clicked straight away. And you've got such a warmth about you, which I'm sure you hear from lots of people, but you're just such a loving, caring guy. And I just felt that straight away. And I was like, I need you on my podcast, not just because you're caring, but because you've got lots to share as well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny because what you just said then was in the past seen as a weakness.
Mm,
I think that got taken advantage of a lot, and I still have moments of I always want to see the best in everyone. And I think that comes from a place of people wanting to do the same for me.
mm.
So I love that it's still felt because I've had to, not had to, I got to bring in new boundaries that allowed myself not to be used, manipulated, whatever it might have been in the past.
Hmm.
But that new strength in that has allowed me to create what I've created in the last few years, which has been cool.
Yeah, amazing. And I can really relate to that as well. There's definitely been, people often say, "Oh, Priscilla, you're so likable, you're so approachable, you're so friendly," and I'm grateful that people see me like that. I am, but there is also part of that can be manipulated sometimes. There's some people who will take advantage of that. Or Priscilla will just help me with that, and Priscilla will just, oh, she'll work it out. And I will, because I'm more than happy to, and I'm more than happy to help. But there's also that part of me that's had to learn, like you, had to learn boundaries around that as well. But it's good that we still keep that heart about us because that is what makes us who we are.
Oh, just that sentence, that line is so interesting because that is exactly what was said at the coffee table this morning. As I said before, speaking with my mate, and he said, people don't actually realize what makes us humans. What
Mm,
actually, who are we actually? Because so many of us have been reading books, listening to podcasts, watching movies, and we've almost like created this oneness of self based off other beliefs, patterns, programs, and all the other things, right?
mm,
Rather than actually just coming back to our own heart
mm.
and creating the version of us that feels best to us, that we always were, right? We were
Yeah.
born perfectly.
Yeah.
We were born perfect. And yet, over those years, for me, example, 34 years of illusions placed over who I truly am at the core.
Mm,
And I think a lot of people call this stuff like self-development, self-improvement, leveling up and all these things, but it really is just coming back to who you are. It's
that's right.
actually just stripping away the layers of the shit that's been laid on top of who you are at the core, and then allowing yourself to actually feel and listen to whatever this thing is, the source, universe, and creating your own reality based off that rather than listening to everyone around us. And I'm open, always open to perspectives and stuff. Obviously, I love learning from those who have created greatness before us. But
Mm,
I just really want people to understand that you all have your own power, and exactly what we talk about with inspired founders. It's like, who are you?
mm.
Because you can be inspired by others, but how about you inspire yourself by becoming the truest you?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. There you go. There's our new tagline.
Yeah.
So, give all of our listeners a little bit of a background into who Trav is. So, you've been on this self development journey, if that's what we want to call it, for 34 years, probably not quite that long, but most of your adult life. Can you give our listeners a little bit into like where this all started for you?
It's interesting. Every time I tell this story, it changes every time. And the way you just asked that, I'm about to tell it in a completely new way. Shout out to Charlie Owen, one of my good mates that we're in our weekly chats with Toddy, myself, Rye, Charlie, and Eugene, all coaches. And he took us through a meditation the other day, Priscilla, that has never left me. And I just want everyone to close their eyes and come along with this journey because it hit me like a ton of bricks. So we do mindful minutes before we do our sessions. We like 5-10 minutes. One of the boys will run it each week. And now I might butcher the wording, but Charlie basically asked us all to go within and see ourselves, see our present selves, but then to zoom out at an eagle eye view and see that we're actually standing on our parents' shoulders. And then I want you to zoom out again, another eagle eye point of view, and see the grandparents. So your parents' parents are there too. You're standing on their shoulders as well. And I want you to zoom out again and see the generations zooming out, zooming out, zooming out, zooming out until you see your lineage that you have come from, your bloodline, the history that lives within you in every part of your cells, your beliefs, your programs, your traumas, everything. And you are literally standing on the top as the arrowhead, the spearhead that has decided to fucking change it all for once. You are leading the change of your entire generation for generations before you and for generations to come. Someone else is going to be standing on your shoulders eventually.
Mm,
They're going to be leading the charge. You're just sharpening the spear so they can do it properly. Mm. So that in itself made me have a realization. And as we said before, this podcast has been so much uncovering this week in the last 2 weeks. It's like lifetimes are being peeled back at the moment because of what's happening in the world. And learning that and hearing that made me realize, dude, what I've actually accomplished as a human.
mm,
And I can tell there's going to be emotion telling the story now because it means so much more because of what I've uncovered in the last couple of weeks.
mm,
And when you asked that question, the first thing that came up was that I'm literally choosing to heal my entire family. I've chosen to heal traumas that dad could never handle.
mm,
I've chosen to deal with things that they just didn't have the capacity to do it. And it's okay. Like, I don't hold any resentment towards
mm,
anyone before me. I
mm,
wouldn't be here without them.
mm.
Here we go. I also, I also wouldn't have the knowledge and lived experience and wisdom that I utilize now to help others if they didn't put me through what I went through. So I'm grateful for my experience. I'm grateful for the little boy that was like a giant at 6 years old, right? Like I was fucking like 6 foot by the time I was 10.
My God.
I've always stood out.
Mm,
I've always been under pressure. I was thrown into football before I could really even talk properly. I know I was a super quiet kid, like I played under sixes twice, like because I was so big. They're
mm,
like, oh, you can just play this year. He's 5 years old. Let him go. And I realized now through all this that yes, my physical body could handle the life that was given to me, but the soul that inhabits the meat suit, he wasn't ready until literally like last week.
mm,
It's taken me 34 years, Priscilla,
mm,
to fill this container that I've been given. And I thought, and others thought that this body was produced and created and designed to hurt people on the
mm,
football field. I spent 15 years doing it.
Mhm.
hurting other humans on a football field that I thought I was really good at it. Don't get me wrong. I know why I was given that challenge and that mission to go out there on that football field and do what I did
Mm.
and experience the things I did during school. Like I didn't know how to be a normal human. I was always awkward. I always felt like the odd one out. I always felt weird. And it's
Yeah,
funny because the etymology of the word weird is taking control of your own destiny.
I've never heard that. That's
Never heard
amazing.
that before. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's amazing.
I may have messed that up. I'll quickly check it as I continue to tell the story. But it basically got to a point where I felt so weird all the time that I would sort of pull myself out and just put pressure on myself for being different to everyone else. So different to the boys at school, different to the footy boys. I don't know if you've
Mm.
been around football players before, but
My husband's
not
one.
to paint,
Was one.
yeah, not to paint them all with the same brush. Like we're like there's a lot of us are beautiful humans, right? But
I didn't
there's
date
this
him for
general
8 months
sense.
because I said, "You're a football player. I'm never dating you."
There you go. There you
And
go.
then I
Was
got to
it?
know him and he was okay.
He was all right, right? So, was he a rugby union, rugby league,
Rugby
or
league.
oh shit? So he's rugby league like me.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I see why. I see why. So,
Yeah, yeah. But he's a
so
lovely
the
human.
he's epic. Such a I could tell his heart's big. The word, the etymology of, so it's from the old English word destiny. So that basically having the power to control destiny.
I
So
love
for
that so
anyone that
much.
feels weird, just know that you've actually just probably finally realized that you are just on your own path or on your own destiny, that you are here on this earth to be weird, to be seen as different because you're not meant to be doing what you're doing right now.
Mm,
So
wow.
embrace your weirdness because that's very, very long story short, which I'll end it at a certain point until we move forward. But basically through that school period, the football period, the pressure, the anxiety, I started to really struggle with mental health. And at that time, I realized our age is showing probably during this episode, but I didn't, dude, we didn't have podcasts and YouTube and things like that to learn about
No.
anxiety or fear or the fear of abandonment or fear of judgment, the fear of all these different things. So I didn't necessarily have anyone to help me with that stuff. Dad didn't know about it. He did the best he could. But by
Mm.
the time I was 17 years old and I got offered a full time contract, somehow, even though I was the laziest trainer ever, I remember I'll never forget my mate Tice. He would call me Tarzan because I trained like Jane and played like Tarzan. Like I was the slackest dude. I was always weak in the gym, but I just had this like absolute out of human strength on the football field. And I know now what I know is that it's purely because the rage that I suppressed off the field would be released on the field.
Yeah.
All
Wow.
right. So once I figured all these things out, I started to understand that football wasn't for me.
Mm.
Multiple concussions, injuries. I was always injured. 17 years old, but just about to finish school. And the Broncos, I get a mail in the mail. And it's like, hey, mate, we want you to have you down at Red Hill in the train on squad to go into the 20s and everything with like Ben Hunt, Andrew McCulloch, Josh Maguire, Alex Glenn, all the guys that played, and still playing today.
Yeah.
They were my teammates.
Yeah.
And I quit football at that time. And that's kind of where things start to unravel a bit. But I'm sure you
Yeah.
have some questions based off what was
Yes,
just shared there.
definitely. I
Yeah.
do. And I think, and you say, things start to unravel there. And I didn't share this part. We were at an event last week and I shared part of my story. And that is part of my story. But like all of us, there's layers to the stories. I want to say that I resonate with part of that, most of that actually, because I was what I thought I was weird at school. I never really fit in anywhere. I went to an elite private school, which my parents could never really afford, but they sent me there. So the pressure was always on me to perform. But I was so ashamed of who I really was because I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere that I would make up stories about who I was to make friends because I thought that's who I had to be liked. And so it became literally a lifetime of making up stories of who I could be to be liked by people. And I didn't really realize this as a child, but looking back on it now, definitely. So I resonated with the weird part, but also the sports part. So I was a really good ballerina And
Oh, no way.
yeah, we're learning something today. And when I was 15, I auditioned for the Queensland Ballet Excellence Program, and I got in. And so there was 40 of us of, I think, about 180 who auditioned. So I went on and I danced for year 11 and 12. So we dance like 8 hours a day, and then we do schooling in the afternoon at the Queensland Ballet. And similar story where because I had so much going on at home and in every other area of my life, I put on this brave face of, yes, I can do this. And I was naturally quite gifted and talented at it. But I never felt fully like it was my thing, if that makes sense. Like I was
Yeah,
good
I
at
get
it.
it.
I loved it. I love dancing. Still this day, I'll get up and I'll have a dance. Like I love dancing. But there was so much else going on that it ended up manifesting into stress fractures in both of my shins. And I ended up having 10 stress fractures in each of my shins, and I had to quit the ballet and I couldn't graduate. I have 4 months left of year 12, and they
Oh,
had to take me out. So I couldn't graduate, and I went back to a state school. But the reason I'm sharing that is because I resonate with so much of your story. And yes, they're different, but it's that similar aspect of we always knew we were here for something, destined for something, but the vehicle in which we were doing it was never meant to be, because we ended up injured, or ended up, for whatever reason, the universe had to redirect us. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that part.
oh, thank you for sharing that because I don't think I've ever touched on this part of the story where, yeah, the universe was throwing feathers, bricks, and buses at me at
Mm,
every moment, every corner. It was trying to tell me, dude, this isn't your thing. This
mm,
is not it. Injuries, concussions, like horrible injuries.
mm,
And I was always picked on for that. It's like people thought I was always faking it, or
mm,
why are you always injured, Travis? Like as if I have control over this, you know?
mm,
How am I
mm,
meant to know that someone's going to run into me and fracture my sternum? Someone's gonna come in with an elbow and completely like fracture my skull open where there's my brains are almost showing. It's like I can't stop those things, guys. But I was treated as if I was some lazy piece of shit that didn't want to play.
mm,
And don't get me wrong, I definitely made excuses. I look back and yes, there was
mm,
excuses because it just wasn't my thing. I didn't love it enough to push through some of the stuff that I was dealing with. So
mm,
I hear you on that one, dude. And that what you just said then really hit me was the identity aspect of it all.
mm,
So imagine from 5 years old, Priscilla, to 17, I am Travis the football player.
mm,
And then I throw that identity in the bin at 17 years old. And then the next few years play out where I'm like, wait, maybe I'm a football player. I keep going back to it, getting injured, going back to it, getting injured, trying new jobs, to go from, yeah, you're going to be the next football superstar. Like this is literally what the Broncos development guys are like. You're our next big thing.
mm,
You and your mate Tice that I grew up with, Tice Andrews, shout out to my brother. I'm still mates with today. His daughter's my goddaughter. And what sort of followed was that imagine being told you're going to be the next big thing in a sport that only 1% of young men make it into. And I did it without trying.
yeah.
Now, I don't say that with cockiness. I literally know that I just made it through purely being huge and naturally gifted at it.
Mm,
I never really trained hard. I never really cared too much. I still made it, and that pissed everyone off around me. I know it pissed Tice off. He talks about it.
yeah.
He had to work for everything he was given. He eventually made the NRL when he was like 25,
Mm.
and I threw it all away. I had it all and threw it all away.
Mm. So I want to talk about that because, again, something I can resonate with when, you have that identity and then it's all taken away or it's all thrown away, and you're then rediscovering yourself. It's a journey. It's a real journey. So talk us through a little bit about those next few years, because I know you went through quite a lot mentally with
Mm.
that.
Yeah, it was brutal. I went from superstar to working at my local IGA in a small country town in Woodford. I don't know if anyone knows Woodford, but it's not too far from the Sunshine Coast here. So you can imagine, like I'm comparing myself to these guys that are now on TV playing 20s, and mates are getting trades. A lot of people are going to university, everything. And I was at home with my parents in this country town
Mm,
dealing with like severe identity crisis, depression, anxiety, everything. And luckily enough, I met someone, my partner at the time, who supported me, challenged me, pushed me out of my comfort zone. And really, she honestly, Priscilla, if I really think of it, and I've said it a few times that without Gracie, and she knows I tell this story, she's all good with it, but that without Gracie to sort of hold me through what I went through, I wouldn't still be here because
Mm.
what transpired just recently, this is wild that this has happened. That, and no wonder our podcast is happening today.
Okay.
There's a reason it's happening today because what transpired on Wednesday, just gone, was a realization that my journey at that time, and look, if anyone wants to go really listen to the true depths of it, I've done heaps of podcasts on it now, but I want to tell what's relevant for your listeners right now is that
Mm.
I had manifested into my life this realization of I'm about to give a massive corporate workshop at one of the biggest Mazda dealerships in Australia. And the day before it, I leave everything to the last second, always. Must be the ADHD. And I left my presentation to the last second and I was freaking out. I'm like, fuck, how do I make this the best I can make it?
Mm.
And I messaged Lukey, the owner. He's such a beautiful dude. And I just said, mate, do you mind if I'm really real and raw and honest and swear and all the things that I am? He's like, of course, mate. That's why I want you to come in. I want you here because of who you are. I don't want you to be anything else other than you.
Mm.
And like, I was worried about how am I going to dress? How am I going to dress like corporate-y? And I'm just like, no, I'm going to dress exactly how I do as the technician, who I do as Trav. I'm going to wear
Mm.
a cap. I'm going to wear a shirt with the technician on it. Like, and everything just fell into place. And in that moment of realization of who I actually am at the core of me, and
Mm.
that I'm going to be weird, I'm going to be different, and I'm going to stand out, and that's
Mm.
okay. I realized, Priscilla, that 10 years ago, fucking 10 years ago, was when I was working at a car sales place. And I'd realized for the first time in my life when I had that job was that I felt like I was someone since football. Because I
Mm.
perceived, oh, I'm at this prestigious Toyota dealership that's one of the biggest in Australia and it wins all these awards. And I've got the shirt on, so I'm part of that. I mean something. Yay. As a man, I have a purpose and I can provide for my woman because at the time I never had money. I could never take Gracie and I to dinners and stuff. I felt fucking pathetic. I felt useless.
Mm.
So let alone did I thought I'd overcome that. I go into this job with the ideas and mindset that I was already a pathetic human being as a man. And I go into this job that's all about being confident to sell.
Mm.
So again, let's go, Trav. Let's put that mask on, brother. You
Mm.
got this. Let's pretend. Let's pretend. Let's pretend. Every day for weeks, I pretended to be okay with this job that freaked me out.
Mm.
I hated cars. I couldn't stand I barely fit into
That's not
things,
why
you
you're
know?
called the technician.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely got nothing to do with cars. I suck with cars, but and I even to the point like I to this day feel like I was pathetic because I couldn't drive a manual car. At that
Yeah.
time, I was so terrified and had so much fear. Like I felt like a useless person just off that, let alone all the other things that come with being a man or a little boy still. And it all came to this point, and I'll tell the funny part of this story too because I need to. Um, it sort of culminated all these weeks of just constant stress. Like, oh my God, this place is terrifying. Like, what am I doing here? Who am I? And it culminated to one of the managers was like, all right, Trav, we know, you've mentioned that you're a bit nervous to do this, but we need you to go move one of the cars out the front. And it's on a hill and it's a Toyota Yaris. All right, just being 6'5", 100+ kilos. Let me just fit into this tiny little car and let me have a crack at this. And I sit in there and I'm freaking out, Priscilla. Like, as you can imagine, a kid with severe anxiety who has no idea how any of that works, how your nervous system responds to all this stuff. And I go to put it in to what I think is reverse.
Oh no.
Little do I know that this year's Toyota Yaris has a fucking ring you have to pull up to put it in reverse. I put it into fifth gear and I bunny hop this thing into another Yaris and destroy two cars. Proper fuck these cars up and nearly take out the guy that's like controlling me to say, go this way. Okay, like straight into this another car. And
We can laugh about it now,
what
right?
we're gonna laugh
Because
about it. You have to. Like I've moved through all the stuff. But what came after that, obviously, as I said, I feel like I really need to tell this part of the story because the next part of the story is pretty dark.
mm,
And when I told this at the workshop the other day, it really landed for a lot of the men I could see because a lot of them had felt this before.
mm,
Sometime in a lot of men's lives and women's, I know women have these moments too, where you have felt so fucking useless for so many years that there can be this defining moment, this catalytic moment where you go, well, what's the point?
mm,
If I can't even drive a car, what am I doing here?
mm,
If I can't even be a man, what's the point? Like, what is the
mm.
fucking point of me still living?
Yeah.
So, of course, those thoughts started coming in, and I can't to this day remember whether it was the same day or the next day or that week. But like around that time, I decided then driving home from that job one day, I was just going to drive my car into a tree. And I did. I literally decided as I was coming around a big roundabout not far from home, I was like, fuck this. And I went to drive into a big tree. And at the last second, like something just hit me like, don't do it. Like the full movie moments where
Yeah.
something flashes before your eyes. And it was like, okay, shit, pull it back on the road. The tears, just like all the sadness, everything got suppressed, everything. I just felt it. I barely made it home. I got home to Gracie and sort of shared with her what happened. And, in that moment, she supported me. The workplace did support me as well. And we made a decision to move to Sydney for a
Hmm.
big change, to follow Tice, my best mate again. Again, the safety, right? I'm following daddy around. And it was in that moment where all that stuff happened. I started to make the changes necessary.
Mm,
And what sort of followed was I had never really found a job. I tried all these different work, like civil construction, boiler making, all this shit that I was always really shit at. And I kept saying, I'm so useless as a man. Why can't I do things that all these other men can? Why do I get shit laid on me for not being able to drive a truck, or I'm useless with a fucking welder or whatever it might be, right?
yeah.
And then when we moved to Sydney, I found Rebel Sport, and this is kind of the next part of the journey. But if you have any questions about what played out then, I'm sure we can riff on a couple of things there.
For sure. Wow. Whatever that moment was that flashed before you, I'm so glad that it did. Would you say that was a divine moment, or would you say it was your mind, or would you say it was an out of body experience? Yeah.
It hit me. It's like, yeah, we had you.
Mm,
We had you. What I've discovered now as the person I am today, and the spirituality that I've experienced, the energetics, the vibration, the freak, all those sort of things. My guides, um, I know that they were there
mm,
at that time to say, hey, no, 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 this isn't where you leave us.
mm,
This is just another part of your journey to grow you and develop you and prepare you,
mm.
rewire you for the man you're about to come in another 10 years or so,
Yeah.
to be on this earth to help change humanity. And I
Yeah.
know how douchey that sounds to some people. I'm well aware of that.
Not to our
But
listeners. Our listeners
to our listen,
understand it, I'm sure.
cool, they get it. They get it. They get it. That's awesome. So again, there's probably still pieces of me that when I speak, there's probably that little version of me of the football boy that if I said that to the boys, they'd be like, what are you talking about, you loser?
Yeah.
That still plays out sometimes for sure. I've had to overcome a lot of that. But yeah, asking that question is amazing because I literally got that straight away, the unconscious answer of, yeah, we had you that day.
Mm,
And they've had me since then. I just
mm,
have only sort of recently tapped into them properly.
mm.
And that's now, which I'm sure we'll get to soon, is
Yes.
that now there's gifts I've remembered that I've always had,
Mm,
gifts that I've had before the version of travel I am today.
mm.
Whatever energetic soul form I was before this,
Yeah.
I had like shamanic gifts as a Native American guide in a village sometime. Like,
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
so yeah, it's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. So Rebel Sport.
What Rebel did was that it provided me a platform to realize where my gifts are, is
Mm,
helping people.
Mm.
So it might have started with, selling footwear to people, but
Mm.
while I was there doing that, I was literally having conversations with people where they're telling me their life story.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, and I'd have some of the workers walk by and be like, dude, why the fuck was that person telling you about the time they tried to kill themselves?
Yeah. Wow.
And I would just be like, I don't know. But but I cared. I
Yeah.
just cared so much. And I just wanted to listen. I was so good at listening and asking questions. And this is before I knew anything about podcasting and everything I'm doing now, right? So it's always been in me. There's always been this innate ability to just connect with people, care and listen and provide a really, really safe space for them to just be them.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that led out 6 years at Rebel, heaps of stuff happened there, X's, more challenges, more another dark hole where my partner and I, Gracie, the one that helped me, we separated and I destroyed my knee, which sent me back home to Woodford again. So I'm back at the start again in my
Yeah.
darkness, depressed, knee surgery, replacement, all these things that put me in the pit for like 4 months. But in that, I decided to start a clothing brand.
Oh.
So my entrepreneurial journey actually started with a clothing brand. Colorblind. Yeah, with my best mate.
Ah.
Yeah, so that started, that opened my eyes to the entrepreneurial world. And then I got into podcasting, listening to Tom Bilyeu, Impact Theory, Ed Milet, all these guys that are incredible entrepreneurs.
Mm.
And I started building my mindset from, 26 years old. So the last 8 years, dude, have been just learning, growing. I got picked up by a guy that owned a 360 gym
Mm.
brand, which was a gym on a trailer. So I was
Oh.
selling them at some point. Yeah. I was selling custom sportswear to another mate who was an entrepreneur. And it all sort of culminated to, I guess, the biggest piece that for me is that 2020, when COVID hit,
Mm.
that my partner at the time got locked out of the country. She was Canadian. So I went on through like panic attacks, depression again.
Mm.
And then I met this guy. Now I know this is where it started.
Yeah.
I met this guy, Jordan Potts. Shout out to Potts. He's one of my best mates now. And it was at a farmer's market. Priscilla, 4 days before I meet this motherfucker, I was telling Tams about this guy I saw on Instagram. His name was Yoda Strength. I love the name of him. And he does this breathing thing. It's really weird, but he does like deep breathing. I don't get it. 4 days later, I run into this guy at the farmers markets when I'm depressed, like in the darkest times. Me and my best mate at the time started a coaching brand called Arcadian Coaching, which was about helping people find their paradise, like the Greek mythology.
Mm.
So he knew I was trying to build something, and he said, "Mate, how's everything lately?" I just remember saying, "Oh man, I'm struggling." Told him a bit of the story.
Yeah.
That afternoon, I'm at his place doing ice baths and breath work and Wim Hof. That's where it all started.
Wow.
That's where the real work of becoming back to myself, because that breath work, I was like, oh, the numbness, all the
Yeah.
realizations, and not long after that, my best mate, who I was trying to start the coaching brand with, KP, he said to me on the beach, he's like, bro, I love the way you try to rewire my mind. You're like a technician.
Ding.
That is where that picture,
Oh.
I drew that picture the same day.
You drew that?
I drew that picture and sent it to some dude in Argentina on Fiverr.
I love that.
It just hit it, again like a download. All these things that have
Yeah.
been happening for 4 years. It was just like something goes, Trav, it needs to be you with tools. It's funny because like tools, I've always been useless with tools. um, but
But
it's
you're good with
me
the mind, so that's good.
extremely good with the mind. Those esoteric tools, metaphysical tools,
Mm.
to heal and rewire people's brains, unconscious mind, the shadows. It all started there from my
Mm.
mate saying that. And when he said that, a week later, I was like, bro, we need to start a podcast. And that picture sat on my wall for 7 months before I did my first episode.
Yeah, right.
All right. And that's where the next part of the journey starts to unfold.
Yes, yes. So you've had a podcast for 3 years now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you hit 100 episodes? I feel like I heard you
106, I think.
106. Wow. I mean, I'm still in my infancy stage, so I got a long
What
way to
episode is
go.
this?
We are episode 6.
Let's go. So, milestone one, Priscilla, have you heard about the stats that Chris Williamson has given out? Modern wisdom.
No?
So 99% of podcasters don't make it past episode 3.
Oh,
Whoever make it past episode 3, don't make it past episode 20. Whoever makes it to episode 21, you're in the top 0.05%.
really?
So you're already in the top 1%.
They're not high stats, by the way.
Like you're 6 episodes in, you've gone past the graveyard. So I
Yeah.
kid you not, I thought that can't be real.
No.
And then I had multiple friends around me start podcasts, and then I checked, and most of them were literally at episode 3.
Really?
Because imagine the human thing where it's like third time's a charm, right? People start listening. Oh, no, they don't. They don't give a fuck about me or what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I'm going to give up. This is testing every part of my worth and self worth, and no one
Mm,
cares. Fear of failure, fear of judgment,
mm,
right? And it plays out. So, yeah, like before I started my first episode, similar to what you said before, I sat at my table in my kitchen by myself in the home that I'd somehow secured, but I didn't have my partner there because she was locked out of the country. And I sat there and did this episode, and it terrified me. I wanted to spew.
mm.
I think I did like 12 takes,
Just by
right?
yourself, you weren't interviewing anyone. It was just like
It was
you
just a
there.
single, it's on YouTube. If anyone wants to watch it, it's horrific. But my first episode ever, I didn't even know how to upload it to Buzzsprout. I didn't even know how to put it on Spotify and
Yeah.
Apple. I just panicked and I was like, I need to do this. And I threw it on YouTube because I
Hmm.
knew how to upload it to YouTube. So um, I used my super to buy all the gear I needed because they were releasing our supers in 2020. I don't know if you
That's
remember
right.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. So I took out my super to purchase everything I needed to start it. And I kept that same gear up until last year.
Yeah.
Right. So I took what most people would tell us, you need to save for your future to retire. It's like, fuck that. I'm going to bet on myself right now and create my own life.
Mm,
Right. And yeah, what unfolded obviously up until now is what the podcast gave me. And for anyone listening, and I'm sure you're experiencing this too,
mm,
podcast gives you the ability to meet people you may have never met without the podcast.
yeah.
Right. Everyone wants to tell their story.
Mm,
Everyone wants to, most people that you're meeting, I'm sure, want to help people because I know I do. I only do this so other people don't have to be hurt like I did. You know,
mm.
it's like Toddy says, it's like, it's your, what hurt you, your why. The reason you for being is that we don't want other people to experience what we did.
That's
And
right.
funnily enough, he was one of the people I met 7 episodes in, who's now been one of my best mates since then.
Yeah.
Right. So I met a friend and a mentor who helped me become the man and the coach I am today. We created events together, the Ripple Effect. We ran events together. We went to Espens. We created multiple different ideas and concepts, and it grew and grew, and which led to me helping create another one of the biggest men's work brands in Australia in Heart Led Warriors. You know, like I was a co-creator in that. I'm not part of it anymore because it just changed. But now I'm with Trinity Holistic Collective with Christy, my fiance, and Lily, Christy's daughter, and her son Jack. So it's all really culminated into what I do now as the technician based off those adventures, misfortunes. And I guess at the core of it all, Priscilla, is a term I coined, which I live to this day, is everyone's afraid of failure, right? Most people are scared to fail.
Yeah.
I love failure. I came up with the term fast action ignites learning.
Hmm.
Fail. I know that if I just go fast, I move fast, I'm going to learn really quick because
Mm,
I'm going to figure out what doesn't work.
mm,
So a lot of people have given me a lot of slack for shit that might seem unfinished or you rushed that or whatever. But I said, hey, yeah, that's cool, but I've already done 50 episodes and you haven't even started your podcast
yeah.
because you're worrying about how the audio sounds or how you look.
Yeah.
You know, like just for anyone listening,
Yeah.
just start and just figure it out, see what happens, right? And it'll lead to what I'm doing now.
Yeah, exactly. And I was very much the same. I for probably about 3 years ago, I had was definitely a divine moment where I woke up at 2 a.m. and I just heard Inspired Founders. I had no idea what it was going to be, didn't even think it'd be available. Like Inspired Founders, surely someone owns that business name and has that domain. Anyway, it was all available. But at the thing that I think I didn't know what it was going to be. But over the next kind of year or 2 years, what kept coming to me was like, it needs to be like a podcast. Like, I just need to hear stories of
Mm.
inspired founders, people who have founded businesses, not because of the business, but because who they can truly help and inspire along the way through their journey, but also through their business. So, yeah, but for a long time, I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the equipment. My office doesn't look right. Blah, 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 blah. And it was literally a weekend where I just went, I'm ripping that band aid off. I went and bought all the gear. I
Yeah.
just did it all. I got the stylist. I'm like, you're doing my office next week. Um, because you just have to rip the band aid off. Like, most of the time, it is just ourselves keeping ourselves small. Um, there's actually no blocks there. It's just get on with it and get it done if you really want to. But sometimes we don't want it bad enough either.
Yeah, I love that. And congrats too, because it's the hardest step, right? It's just the
Mm.
starting, it's just getting it started. And one of my most recent guests, Chris Griffin, he was incredible. He's a young lad who has grown from like 3,000 followers to 260,000 followers in like 3 months, right?
Whoa.
He's an inspired founder. You should definitely get him on.
Wow.
He's
That's
created an incredible
insane.
life. He's like 23, 24. I think he's a part owner in a new AI startup. Like he's incredible. And he said this thing and it never left me. He said, "You don't have a fear of failure. You have a fear of what people will think if you fail."
Mm,
Think about if you're at home playing games and you die, you don't give a fuck. No one saw you die. But if someone was watching and they
mm,
go, "Uh-huh, you died.
mm, mm.
Oh, now I got to make that mean something."
Yeah.
So when he said that, it really landed. It was like, yeah, it's like we're so worried about what everyone else is going to think if we fail.
Yeah.
Or it might be, with what I teach, you're hearing dad's voice over and over again because you stuffed up again and he yelled at you for stuffing something up. And
Mm,
that program is now there that you've got a fear of failure because of the way you were treated when you did fail.
mm. Yeah.
That's another part.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into that. Let's go into the technician stuff.
Mm,
Let's go into the shadow stuff. You obviously had to do a lot of reprogramming of your own. You were in a very dark place, and that's obviously where this journey began of your own before you
mm,
could go and help other people. Where do you now start with people who come to you and go, where do you start? Where is the starting point? And I know
mm.
everyone's on their own journey, but where is that starting point?
I love this. First thing that comes through is that there's literally a book that I'm going to recommend to every single person. I'm reading it right now,
Mhm.
but it's making me realize what the most important first part is for anyone to start. The mountain is you.
Mm.
I don't know if you've seen it or read
No,
it,
I
but
haven't. No.
it's all about self sabotage.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I do know about
Yeah.
self-sabotage though.
Yeah. So it's big. Now, some
Yeah.
people say that self sabotage doesn't exist, all these other things, and it's okay because everyone's got different
Yep.
terms and everything for it. This is just how I work.
Mm, mm,
Shadow work that I've learned is Carl Jung from the 1950s. He was a Swiss psychologist, and he termed that coin of the repressed parts of our psyche that we don't want to show to the world. We deem as they're not worthy. It might have been, for example, I use this a lot where someone might have been a really loud, fun, boisterous little girl, and then someone told them to shut up, be
mm.
quiet, sit down, and then they go, "Oh, let me just put that away." Let me just hide that version of me somewhere. So
Mm,
now what plays out is that every time they see someone who is like that, they trigger them
mm,
because they see themselves in that person. They want that little girl is screaming at them, going, "Yes, that's us. Let us out. Let us fucking be like that. That is you. That's the authentic you. That's the real you. Why
mm,
won't you just let us be heard? Why don't you let us just be felt?"
mm.
And then you're just going, "No, no, no, whoa, get back in your hole. Get back in your Harry Potter cupboard." Right. And I heard Julian, I can't remember his last name, but this coach online that I watch a lot of, and he said, we're all child abusers.
Mm,
We're all abusing our own inner child because everything we do can be preconceived or pre-controlled and programmed by the little versions of us that are still within us.
mm.
Like we're both 34 years old. There's 33 versions of us before now, right? And I think the most important story for me to tell is it's just dropped in for a reason. Aubrey Marcus, do you know Aubrey Marcus?
No.
Cool. So He's an incredible entrepreneur. He started On It, which is a massive brand business. He does his huge breath work and mindfulness. He's an incredible man. He tells a story that he did this process called internal family systems, where you connect with
Seen that.
your
Yeah.
inner child, right? Yeah. So he tells a story about when he was 4 years old and his dad was very competitive and he was playing ping pong with his mate. And he remembers that his dad accidentally hit the ball and it hit the top of the racket and it hit the like the corner of the roof or something.
Mm.
And him as a 4 year old just was like, yay, goal. Just something silly, right? Just
Yeah.
like a 4 year old. And as his friend left, his dad's friend left, he turned around to his 4 year old son and goes, Are you making fun of me? Are you
Mm.
trying to embarrass me in front of my friend? And then he beats him.
Mm.
So in this moment, Aubrey's going through this on a podcast live with Dr. I think it's Schwartz, Dick Schwartz or something like that created this.
Okay.
And he's asking him like, what happened there? What was it? So that 4 year old created a protector, a guardian in him. So I believe he put a protector up to protect him from men
Mm.
or anyone that was perceived as unsafe. There was this trust issues around men in general or something around that way, right? So for anyone listening, have a think about some of the experiences you've had as a kid
Mm.
and think about how maybe they still play out to this day.
Mm.
You know, like I, for one, suppressed a lot of who I am today.
Mm.
I am a big, loud dude who has so much love to give and just wants to be himself in every space he goes. I swear, I act a certain way, I dress a certain way, but I suppressed him for so long.
Mm.
And it's almost like you're trying to contain this energy that wants to burst out of this box. And you're just going, no, 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 you're not allowed out. The
Yeah.
world deems us unsafe and untrue. And you don't line up with my image of the world and my identity, so you're not allowed to come out of
Mm.
that repressed darkness in that back room. And the best analogy that I'll share is so many people, we probably see this whole love and light part, side of spirituality and all this other stuff. I think the most beautiful, real spiritual people are the ones who embrace their darkness too. Because if you can picture yourself in a party room, you're in a room, right?
Mm.
You're in this little room, there's lights going off, there's drinks, there's food. Let's picture the Inspired Founders party last week.
Yes.
But picture, Priscilla, that all those people in there are the parts of you that you accept and love.
Mm.
They're all the parts of you that you've gone, yeah, these parts are cool. I'll let people see these and I'll feel them.
Mm.
But then you hear this,
Mm.
and then you get a shiver down your spine, like, oh no.
Mm.
You turn around, you look in the window, and there they are.
Mm.
Those dark, repressed, or just parts of you that you don't want to love. You
Mm.
deem them as unacceptable for anyone to see or feel or hear or understand because you don't want to say that they are you.
Mm.
But I know that every time I work with people and I help them really safely integrate these versions and open that fucking door and let them in because they are part of you.
Mm.
They deserve the love too. They deserve the understanding
Mm.
because they are you and it's
Mm.
okay.
Mm.
Most men avoid the monster,
Mm.
but it's as soon as you let him in the room and give him a big hug, that's when he can actually be controlled and he can be used instead of uncontrolled rage, anger, and all these leaky shit, abuse, things that men are perpetrating right now, worse than ever. Even though there's all these fucking men's health things, it seems to be worse than ever because we're not dealing with the entire body, the somatics, and the felt experience. We're just talking about it.
Mm.
It's as soon as we feel it, feel the emotions we've suppressed and welcome and love and actually accept ourselves entirely and come back to who we are,
Mm.
that party gets real fun. The alcohol starts coming out. You start like, yeah, let's go. And you just, everyone's having a sick time, but it's a healthy, happy party. No one's doing drugs and shit. They're just having fun, drinking a few beers. They're just drinking a few beers, having fun, and everything's happy.
Yeah.
They're dancing, they're having a good time. Some of them aren't even drinking. They're just sober, just living because they're happy.
Mm.
They don't need the suppressants to avoid their emotions. They're all just there as one. So, in a nutshell, in a long story short, what I do is truly rewire everyone to just come back to who they are
Mm.
and stop avoiding those parts of ourselves because what's happening every time you try to say you're not someone or say you're not an angry guy or whatever it might be, How about you just accept that maybe you are deep down and that's okay.
Mm,
And we can work on integrating that part of you, taking the layers back, the programs that society told you are, or that the trauma you went through from mum and dad, or whatever it might be. And
mm,
we start to find out, as I said before, we are born perfectly.
mm.
We just have to delayer a little bit and rewire things so that we can actually show up as the true us.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I know our listeners are going to get so much out of that as well, men and women. I know you work, do you still work predominantly with men or do you work with women as well? Because you've got Trinity now, which I know you've got women in the business.
Yeah, it's funny because my own separate one, I actually had a female client last night. I do tech talks, like one-off hour and a half sessions,
Yeah.
and they're always powerful. Sometimes that's all they need, and they go on and just live
Mm.
their life,
Yeah.
And I've literally had people that are like, "Oh, Trav, that's bad business. Like, don't you want to keep with them and like help them for months on end?" I'm like, "Well, if they need it, but if one session helps them and they're good, be
Yeah.
free, be free. Like, I don't want to see you again. I'd hope to think that you
Mm.
don't need me anymore and you can lead yourself. You're self-led,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but last night I realized that she was amazing. I'll probably end up working with her long term,
Yeah.
purely just to help her create a fucking empire that she's creating. And I'm realizing that it's about half half because
Mm.
what happens is that because I'm such a big dude,
Mm.
the men respect me and they're probably a little bit afraid of me and see me as like a father figure.
Mm.
But I've also got this really soft side. So I can be loving and caring and nurturing in my feminine,
Mm.
but I can also rip their fucking head off if they're not doing what I ask them to do.
You
And
never rip anyone's head off.
I'm a big teddy bear, I swear.
Yeah,
I'm
you
more of a
are.
I'm more of a grizzly bear. It's like I look big and cuddly and I can be sweet, but if it needs to come out, there is that now. There's
Mm.
that aspect of me, which I really needed because if you don't have that drive and that force, that passion to not only get my own business done and make money and impact and all the things, I
Mm.
also can't call people on their shit.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a lot of very masculine women that work with me. They're very in their drive, business orientated, because they've got a lot of wounding around the masculine. A lot of men in their life have let them down.
Mm.
So they feel really safe in my presence because I've got that healthy, healed masculine energy in a man, but I
Mm.
also have the ability to soften and just make them feel felt and heard and loved in that feminine too. So it's like that
Mm.
swinging between the two pendulums, and it's really healing because then what happens, and I've seen it happen every time, they either end up leaving a relationship that's not healthy for them because they realize what they actually deserve because their nervous system was programmed to chaos.
Yeah.
Or if they're single, if they've been hurt by men, they can come back and get a reference point for what they're actually capable of,
Mm.
what they actually deserve. A man that listens, is present, loving, caring, will call them forward and challenge them when necessary, have
Mm.
the open conversations, have an awesome sex life, all those sort of things. Is like helping them understand themselves that you can have everything you've ever wanted.
Mm.
You just have to rewire those programs that tell you that you can't.
Yeah. And I think that's the most powerful sentence of this entire podcast is you can you can have all of those things and you don't have to sacrifice any parts of you. Any of those, even those dark parts of you that you maybe are not yet accepting of yourself, are not yet accepting yourself. So amazing. I think we could go into so much more about what you do, but we would probably keep our listeners here for another hour.
100%.
But definitely go and listen to the Technician podcast and go and follow Trav because you're doing some exceptional work and I'm loving all of your content at the moment. I think you've just hit another gear from what I'm
Thank
seeing.
you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And to be honest, it's from getting around people like yourself. I
Mm.
think even, just the opportunities you provided for me to come on the podcast and other things like that in itself is just reaffirming that I'm on the right path and that people that I would see as, doing incredible things in the industry, which you are. And I want you to be so fucking proud of what you've created.
Thank you.
And I'm proud of you, even though I've just met you.
We feel like
um,
we've known each other a long time.
yeah, yeah. And like I'm inspired by you. And one of my mates said this a while ago. He said, true friendship is mutual inspiration. And
Mm.
if you're not inspired by the friends around you, that the people that you've got, then maybe just check to see who you're hanging around. But I think for me, it's like what culminated on that Wednesday with that Mazda thing. I had a download 2 days before that of what I'm going to do to change the industry.
Wow.
Yeah. And I obviously won't share it publicly, but people will start to see some wild shit in the next, I'm going to call it in now in the next few weeks.
Wow.
In the
I
next
love
few
that.
weeks,
It's been
in the
declared
next
here,
few
people.
weeks, right here on the Inspired Founders podcast. Because I usually in the past I fucking suck at like keeping secrets, right?
Mm.
As in
Me
like
too.
my own
You
secrets.
just
I
get so
can't I just
excited and passionate. You're like, everyone just needs to know.
yeah, but like anyone else, I'm a lock and key. Obviously, that's why I'm
Mm.
a very good coach. That's why I'm a very good friend. I'm a very good partner because anything that's said to me in privacy, it's like, yeah, that's lock and key. That's forgotten forever. That doesn't go anywhere else. But my own stuff, I'm like, everybody needs to know. I don't have anything to hide.
Yeah.
So, but I've really realized as well that I've got so many incredible ideas that every time I keep speaking them out loud and into the universe, the wrong people might be picking it up and taking that from me.
Mm.
And then also the collective consciousness, the Akashic records, it's getting thrown out into there, and then someone else might pick it up.
Mm.
So trusting that also though I'm abundant and I'm not a gatekeeper, that like anyone can do anything, right? I'm sure people will start copying it once it's out there, but that's okay because no one
Mm.
can replicate who I am.
That's right. Yeah.
So what it's all culminated to, as I said, from people like yourself, opportunities I've had this week in itself has been so fucking monumental in my journey. And I just realized that I'll share this with you. I just got a message about half an hour before jumping on this podcast, Priscilla. I'll share with you after this privately, where I think this workshop stuff's about to go. And I'm talking like Australia wide, like instantly.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
have no doubt. Like I have no doubt. And again, I've just met you, but your energy and your aura like is so huge. The impact you're here to make is huge. And that's not based on your size. That is purely based on your heart, honestly, and what you're here to give. And like I said, I felt that the first time I met you. And I know that this is going to be a long standing friendship. And I know we're going to work together. I know we've already spoken potentially about next Inspired Founders event.
Mm,
So lots to come from here. And I can't wait to hear privately what you got coming up.
100%. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for everyone listening. You're going to do really, really well with this podcasting. If this is only episode 6 and you're already able to hold the frame like this, dude, I had to learn the hard way that I need to, like, when I first started, I just kept talking. Like, I'd be trying to, like, or doing little things that I'd pick up on. You just are so good at just listening, holding space, asking the right questions, and allowing the guest to just speak, which is incredible. So,
Oh,
well
thank
done.
you.
Well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, like anything new, you never know really if you're doing it the way it needs to be done. But I'm very much a believer of it's going to be how it's going to be as long as I be myself and I show up as myself. The main thing for this podcast is I just want to have real conversations with real amazing people who can inspire the next amazing people to come through.
100%. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And if anyone wants to chat, please reach out. I'm just the
Mm.
technician on socials and all those sort of good things. So, yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into this inspirational story. Lucky for you, the inspo doesn't stop here. We have an Inspired Founders Facebook community, a space created just for you to learn, listen, and ask questions from our inspired founders themselves. This unique community is designed to uplift and motivate you to take actions on your own stories and dreams. You'll find the link within our show notes. We can't wait to see you in there.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.